The director of the most recent Little Women movie adaptation, Greta Gerwig, recently went online to complain that men had not purchased tickets to her movie. Her movie, Little Women. The complaint may seem unremarkable and really a sign of the times, unless you look at it through the lens of a self-published author. If you're targeting literally everyone with your book, you're doing it wrong. Hello, shameless writers. I'm Kristin, McTiernan, the nonsense-free editor, here for your weekly dose of writing wisdom. Today we're talking about the importance of properly targeting your audience for a self-published book. Knowing who you're targeting before you spend any money on ads or any money on a book cover or any money even on having a back cover blurb written for you is vitally important in order to get the best bang for your buck. To help you narrow down exactly who your intended audience is for your book, regardless of genre, this video will give you 5 different points to consider to help you narrow down exactly who you want to target for your book. I've done this with my own supernatural trilogy, where I literally went from 0 sales to having a steady stream of at least 1 to 2 sales per day. I started off this video with a discussion of Greta Gerwig's comments about how men and boys didn't go see Little Women and how it was such a shame that Little Women is perceived as a chick flick and something not worthy of male attention. This is a habit I've noticed mostly in the film industry, but also it's creeping into literature as well, wherein an artist or even someone who didn't actually contribute to the work, like a producer or a publisher, will actively berate an audience for not liking what they've put forward. We saw this with the all-female reboot of Ghostbusters, wherein fans of the original Ghostbusters were called a toxic fandom because they didn't want to see a Ghostbusters movie that really didn't take place in the Ghostbusters universe. This seems like an odd marketing decision, but when you have millions of dollars, I guess you can go ahead and criticize your fans and you'll still be okay. I guess. Well, let me ask you a question. When Louisa May Alcott wrote the original Little Women, the book upon which all of these movie adaptations are based, do you think she had a male audience in mind? Do you think she was writing about Jo and her relationship with her mother and her sisters and fierce Aunt Marsh? Do you feel like that was a message for men? Because if you do, I have a bridge to sell you. Louisa May Alcott did not write Little Women for men and boys. Because why would she? It's a book about women for women. And I find it odd that a lot of modern day artists, particularly artists who create a book with a message, have it in their crazy head that literally everyone should like what they have to say. For my female authors who are watching, let me ask you a question. When that stupid Jason Statham movie about the race cars, except they're prisoners and it's like a race to the death in their stupid souped up cars, when that came out like in 2006 or whatever, were you chastised and called toxic when you had no interest in going to see it? Because I wasn't. When I saw that preview, I laughed. I thought it was dumb and maybe it would be something I would watch when it came on HBO and there was literally nothing else to watch. Nobody called me names because I wasn't interested in Jason Statham's recent contribution to the canon, we'll call it. Nobody thinks I'm a bad person because I don't want to go see Hobo with a Shotgun, which is actually a real movie that my husband loves so much that he bought on DVD. Like on purpose, he went looking for this film. Hobo with a Shotgun, real title. Neither of those movies was made for me. And while I have read and enjoyed several of the Jack Reacher books, those weren't written for me either. Every author needs to have an ideal reader in mind when they write their books. And if that's not men, that's fine. Or if it's not women, that's fine. That doesn't exclude the group from reading and enjoying your work. It just means that they're not the intended audience. It can become tricky for independent authors to narrow down exactly who their intended audience is. Now, obviously, if you're writing romance, erotica, or young adult or new adult, chances are your intended audience is female. But there are many other genres than that. If you're writing fantasy, sci-fi, mystery, thriller, even erotic thriller, which is not the same as erotica, as I understand it. The genres themselves can appeal literally to anyone and everyone. What about a genre like horror, where you're not necessarily appealing to a demographic per se, but more of an interest, someone who likes to be scared and a little bit grossed out by viscera and bodily fluids, and not the sexy kind? How do you target exactly who is going to be most likely to purchase your book? Yes, we all want people to read and enjoy our work, but generally speaking, if you are an independently published author, you are doing this to make money, at least on the side. So here are 5 ways to identify who you should write your book to and who is most likely to spend money on it. Number 1, identify works similar to yours and see what kind of person writes the most 5-star reviews. On Amazon, generally people use their real name. On Goodreads, there's a little bit more flexibility. They can use avatars and monikers. However, most people are generally honest about their demographics. Target books in your genre with an author who has written something that you enjoy, preferably someone who has actually inspired your own work. So if you fancy yourself as a less famous, less good Stephen King, target Stephen King's most recent 5-star reviews from actual people versus professional reviewers at publications. Ideally speaking, you want to target books that are a little bit lower on the bestseller list, maybe number 25 instead of number 1. Doing this will allow you to see who just loves these types of books. Are they men? Are they women? Are they Americans? Are they from another English-speaking country? Thankfully, Amazon now features international reviews right there on the main page. You don't have to navigate to each individual country's Amazon page to see the reviews from that country. That is extraordinarily helpful, not only for you as the author on your own book's page, but for you as the author looking at other books' pages so you can see exactly where the most enthusiastic readers are living, because it's not necessarily the United States. When I first released Sunder back in 2007, my most enthusiastic readers were from Great Britain. I'm only just now knowing that because I didn't have access to their reviews on Amazon.us. So annoying. Though you can't always tell the age of the reviewer, you can usually at least understand if they're a young adult or an older adult by the words they use or the type of review that they leave you. If there's a lot of emojis in it, sorry, it's so popular. Anyway, if there's a lot of emojis in there and a lot of, but seriously types of commentary, we can presume that the reviewer is either a teenager or a young adult in their early 20s. At least we can hope. Noticing who enjoys works similar to yours will give you a good idea of exactly who will enjoy your work. This is also helpful because you don't have to actually be done with your book or have published anything in order to understand who you should be targeting. Number 2, what are the demographics of your main character? If you're writing a thriller that's targeted towards middle-aged men with a professional background, it's probably not advisable to do this with a book where the main character is a 16-year-old girl. That's not to say that you can't have any POV characters who are of a vastly different demographic than your intended reader. However, the main character is generally the portal through which a reader enters this world. You want them to be able to see through the person's eyes. Now, of course, through empathy and just verisimilitude, that is a terrible word. Of course, I, as a female reader, can empathize with a male reader. I can empathize with a reader of another race or of another culture. However, I am most immersed when I am reading about female characters who are at least somewhat like myself or in a way that I could imagine myself to be. This is true for everyone, and it is not wrong. I know nowadays there's a lot of emphasis about diverse stories and reading about stories that are not like yours. But don't let that trick you into thinking that you should be targeting one demographic while writing almost exclusively about another. This emphasis on diversity is to allow readers who are not white, middle class, and female to be able to find stories wherein they can see themselves reflected. Meaning, this entire demographic, multiple demographics, have been ignored, basically, for decades. That's what the emphasis on diversity is about. So if you want to write about a person of a specific ethnicity, for the sake of this, we'll say Central American Hispanic, then that is who you should be targeting. Now, of course, if you're watching these videos, you're an English speaker, so you want to make sure that you target those who speak English and probably live in the United States or in Canada. This is reasonable. But as the author of American Dirt found out, don't write a book about Central American migrants and then target guilty, self-loathing, rich white people with all of your advertising. It's not going to end well for you. And then you have to write an apology note to Oprah. Ugh. Your main character is the portal to the book, and your audience should at least be mostly similar to them. Number 3, if you've previously published before, look at your existing reader base. Who loves your work the most? And it might surprise you. I mentioned Sunder earlier. The main character in Sunder is a 27-year-old American woman who is of Spanish heritage. What I found surprising is that the biggest fans of that book were British men over the age of 35 and American women over the age of 45. I found this odd because Isabella, the main character, was in her late 20s. She was fairly newly married. The reason that these two age groups of both men and women related to the story was because, honestly, these enthusiastic readers had just come out of a divorce. The book starts off with a rather ugly annulment arrangement that Isabella is foisting upon her husband, who she no longer wants to be married to, because the story takes place in a Catholic theocracy. She can't get a divorce. She can't just do a we're not getting along divorce. She has to go through the church, and she has to lie about her husband in order to be rid of him so she can move on to greener pastures. This struck an enormous chord in men in their late 30s and women in their mid-40s, because apparently that's when people are getting divorced. Were it not for my existing readers who happen to find me selling books at Comic-Con, I would have never known this, and I would have never thought to target them. Now, obviously, targeting divorcees specifically probably isn't that easy in terms of the Amazon interface. I don't even know how you do that. You can target age groups. It makes sense that a divorcee is probably not going to be 21 years old. At least we can hope. But, with the state of the world, who knows? Read your reviews from your readers, and if you're lucky enough to meet your readers face-to-face, definitely listen to them and exactly what they liked about your story. What did they like about the characters? And then pay attention to their demographics. Who are they? How old are they? Are they parents? Are they young people? Are they pet owners? File it away. Not every demographic characteristic is important to you, but definitely look for patterns in your readership. Number 4. Look at your newsletter demographics. Now, newsletter demographics are important. Every single self-publishing website or webinar will always tell you, get your mailing list in order, because it's still the best way to target your readers. People who willfully say, yes, I want emails from you, and I want to know what you're writing. These are the people who are most inclined to buy your stuff. But once you have an email list, and once you start sending out emails, use whatever interface you're using, whether it's MailChimp or MailerLite. Look and see who opens your emails. Look and see who clicks on the links inside of your email. And definitely pay attention to the people who actually respond to your emails. In my experience, those are a little bit rarer, but you definitely want to take note of who does it. Just because someone's on your list does not mean they're your fan. You can see who opens an email and who doesn't. You can see who clicks on a link and who doesn't. So if you have someone on your mailing list who's never opened a single one of your messages, 1, get them off your list. They're a waste of time. And 2, they're not your fan. So it doesn't matter what demographics they are at all. Focus on the people who click on your links, who open your email, and if you should be so lucky, who respond to you. And finally, number 5, do not focus on mainstream media book reviewers. We talked about the importance of diversity later and how it's a fairly recent push. While that diversity is filtering into actual books, the diversity does not extend to the mainstream book reviewing world. When you look at book reviewers for sites like Huffington Post and for Medium, what you will find overwhelmingly is that they are white women who live in coastal urban hubs who probably majored in gender studies or marketing or media. They have a very distinct set of demographics, and they are most likely not your targeted demographic. So if you find yourself getting a bad review from one of these coastal elites, I guess we could say, don't get upset. Because like it or not, these young 25-year-old bespectacled women who may or may not have blue or pink hair are probably not the intended audience for your hard sci-fi tome with a male POC main character. It's vitally important to have beta readers ARC readers and reviewers who are of your intended audience. These are the people that will give you the best idea on whether you've hit it out of the park or whether you need to go back to the drawing board and maybe tweak a few things before your intended audience has the intended emotional reaction to your work. For some reason, in modern pop culture, there's this insistence that there are no differences between genders or cultures or even age groups. But there are differences, big ones, and marketers win or lose thousands, millions, maybe even billions of dollars based on how well they predict the behavior of the people they intend to purchase their product. And so will you. Write the book you want, but then select your ideal reader and then format the cover art, the back book blurb, and most importantly, the ad keywords to get your book in front of that targeted audience. There's no point in putting your heart and soul into a book you love and that you know others will love too, only to send it to people who won't get out of it what you want them to get out of it. If you were tantalized by hearing about my book Sunder and would like to be notified when it's re-released in 2021, I've left a link below to my mailing list so you can be updated whenever the covers come out and the actual release date of the book. And as always, if you like this video, give me a big thumbs up, subscribe, and share online. I did end up surpassing 100 subscribers by the end of January, so thank you so much to everybody who has already subscribed. I am so grateful to have your attention. I'm looking forward to making even more content and getting more subscribers and helping everybody avoid making costly mistakes. So until next week, take care and write well.